So for this class, we're going to be learning C Sharp, and in my opinion, the best way to work with C Sharp is using the IDE Visual Studio. Visual Studio is amazing. It has a ton of tools, tricks, everything that make programming easier. And as you go through the process, you'll start to see that, and you'll be like, wow, why was I using NetBeans before this? Why was I using Dr. Java before this? Visual Studio has everything. It makes life just infinitely easier. So first things first, go to this URL, visualstudio.microsoft.com/vs/community. You're going to download it. Whenever it downloads, you're going to get this. I already have it downloaded, so I'm not going to download it again. So when you get it downloaded and you open it up, you're going to see something similar to this. It's probably going to say available, community, enterprise, and professional. I already have community installed, so I'm going to show you what it would look like if you're going to install it with the enterprise down here. So you click on the install, it'll open up a page that allows you to kind of select a whole bunch of things that you're interested in. The only thing we need for this class is this first box, the .NET desktop development. Look through this, see things you might like. If you do C++ development, check this. ASP.NET if you want to do web development here. You got Python if you want to do game development with Unity. Xamarin is a mobile development platform, which is really neat. Double check, see if you want any of these. You might as well install them now just to make your life easier later. So now that you have it downloaded, go ahead and open it up. And you're given this front page. Generally, I just go create new project. And for this class, pretty much everything we're going to be doing is with this Visual C Sharp, Windows Desktop, Console App.NET framework. Eventually, later on in the semester, we're going to be looking at Windows forms. But for now, we're just going to start here. Always pick a good location to store your stuff. I'm going to put it in my 3020 class projects folder. And then just because this is an example, I'm just going to call it example project. So when you create your projects, it's going to pre-build pretty much everything for you. It's just, you're ready to go. You're ready to start programming. If I do console.writeline, hello world, run the program, you can see my program works exactly as you'd expect it to. The way I built this was by pressing Control F5. Now, there's a big difference between F5 and Control F5. F5 is just start with debugging. Control F5 is start without debugging. More likely what's going to happen as you start developing is you're going to run your code, you're going to press F5, and this is going to happen. Oh, wait a minute, where'd my code go? It disappeared. When you press Control F5, you don't debug and it'll add this little line. Something else you can do is just console.read key. And when you run it, it'll stop right here. So when I press any key, then it'll close. So over here on the right, we have our Solution Explorer. This has our project, it has our solution, it has all of our class files, it has any references we add, all the ones that it comes with too. Just a bunch of useful things that makes our project what it is. As of right now, I have just my one class program, and I have one method in that called main. This is the entry point. This is the first thing that's always going to get called. So let's say I want to go ahead and add another class. Let's say I want to add a car class. I'm going to click on my project, right click, add, new item. It'll give us a new window, make sure it says class, and then I'm going to rename it to car. So we have our car class, let's give it a constructor. Oops. So we have our car class. So now we can create a new car. So from our main, we're going to go through here and we're going to say car, my car equals new car. Very simple. Because we added it to the solution, it's all referenced, it's all ready to go. So I've gone ahead and went into my car class and I created a method called vroom, just to show as an example. I create my new object, my car, and then I'm going to say mycar.vroom because I want it to print out to the console vroom. So when I run my code, there it is. And we'll be talking more about the code later. I just want to use this as an example to show how something works. So just to make sure the program pauses, I'm going to say console.read key. And then if I build it by pressing F6, it's going to build it. I've succeeded. So now my project has been built. If I right click, there's many ways to do this. This is definitely my favorite way. If I right click one of these tabs up here, open containing folder, it'll actually show me my project. So here's example project, here's the solution, here's all the data inside of it, my two classes, etc. If I open up bin and then debug, the reason it's in debug is because I'm currently in debug mode. Where was I? Here we go. If I go to debug, and then this example project executable here is literally my project. If I make this do anything interesting, it will build here. If you want to send this to a friend, you build an application that does something interesting, you can simply just send them that one file. So now that we have the very, very basics of Visual Studio, I'm going to take the next part of this video to show you some tips and tricks. In the background here, I've loaded up my MS Thesis project, or what it is so far, and I'm going to kind of show you some tips and tricks that makes programming easier. You can see over here, I have many different classes, different folders, different everything. Trying to find some things sometimes can often be a nightmare. So these tips and tricks are going to be here to help you simply make the best out of it. Instead of having to find things and work real hard at it, you could just click a button and a shortcut and it'll tell you where things are. So the first two that are definitely the absolute most important is in the right click menu. So let's say I want to go to my node class. My node class is obviously right here, but let's say it's deep somewhere I don't have it open. Right click, go to definition, or just click on it and press F12. I'm now in my node class. I was just able to easily transfer from one place to the other. And as you can imagine, as I'm looking for something, as I'm debugging, this makes it really easy to go through and see all the things that I need to do. It's super awesome. Something else is the second most common thing I use is when I right click a property, a class, whatever. If I right click, I can say find all references or Control K, Control R. And down here you can see that in the Node CS class, I have a return value there, and then in the UnitSphere class, I actually set it. I apply a value to that property. Super awesome. Let's say I have num nodes. Where do I use this? I have no idea. These are all the places that I use it. It makes it very easy to understand what your code is doing. See, do I have unused variables? You can check these. Super useful little techniques. Another good one is, let's say here I'm setting the isSatisfied property with a delegate. Let's say I don't want to do this anymore, or let's say I just want to return true. So all this stuff right here, I don't actually want to run it. Well, I like the code. I want the code to stay there. I might eventually need it. So I could do something like, this and comment it out. But as you can see, this is just tedious. It's nightmare. It's horrendous. With Visual Studio, if I just select the code I want to highlight, there's this button up here. Comment out the selected lines or Control EC. Boom. Everything's done. Backwards. You can do it a bunch of times. You could go backwards. It's very useful. Obviously, there's also the technique of this. If you're more familiar with this way, this also works. So something Visual Studio does a great job with is IntelliSense. You can see throughout my code, I have a lot of comments, specifically the summary comments, comments inside. It's very useful to have just as the developers if you're working as a team, let them know what you're doing. But it's more important, in my eyes, the IntelliSense that it provides. So here's my constructor for my UnitSphere graph. I removed the comment above it because I want to show before and after. So here I create it. I'm just going to comment this out, and I'm going to create a new one. So right here it says, UnitSphere graph, it's a color node. This is a generic class. We'll be talking about that later in the semester. It says num nodes and denseness. I'm like, okay, num nodes, that sort of makes sense. 10 and then denseness. What is denseness? I have no idea. It causes problems for the developers. I have to go, okay, now I'm going to go look here. Denseness is okay. Where is this used? I have to dig through the code to find out. Where if I add these summary comments, percentage of total connected nodes, very simple, straight to the point. I'm able to tell myself, tell my other developers exactly what this is supposed to do. So now when I go back to my controller class, so num nodes, constructor for the dense graph, the number of nodes create. Okay, so 10 is fine. I'm going to create a graph of 10 nodes. Denseness, percentage of total connected nodes. very, very easy to work with. I know exactly what this is supposed to do. So let's say I want to have 50% of my nodes connected with one another. 0.5. Very simple. So instead of a fully connected graph that is every single node connected to every other node, only 50% of the connections are going to be made. Because I wrote this summary comment here and I gave it all the properties and all the params and all that stuff, I'm able to help myself later read what my code is supposed to do. Super, super useful. So now I'm going to show you a few tricks to make programming faster. We've all done this, int I equals 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus. We've all done this a million times. Visual Studio makes it easier for you. And you're saying, well, how can this be easier? This was easy. Check this out. If I press 4, tab, it literally fills it out for me. Let's say I have an array of integers. We're going to call it my array, and we're going to create a new int of size 10, a new array of size 10. So check this out. I'm going to say for tab my array dot length. Unbelievably easy. Just super simplified code. Same thing with the while loop. While tab, while my array dot length is equal to 10. That's going to run forever, but it's something that we have available. Just makes your life simpler. So taking what we just learned a little bit further, let's say we have an enumeration, and we'll get to enumerations later on in the semester, but it's basically 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's literally coded as that, but it allows you to give custom names to things. In this case, we have a car state. So our car has many states: on, off, idle, stopped, yada, yada, yada. We have stuff to handle. Let's say we wanted to do different things based on our state. Well, I could say if state equals car state dot on, then do this, else if state equals car state dot off equals that. I could go along this line, but this is a nightmare. This would take forever to do all of this. With enumeration specifically, if you do a switch statement, if you do a switch statement and then press tab, it gives you this. Now if I type in state, which is my variable right here, and press enter, it's going to automatically give me every single one of the sections that I was just trying to make. So here, do on stuff. We got here, do off stuff. So super simplified version of writing out the code yourself. Visual Studio will quite literally write it for you. Another thing to note is as I was writing my code, you'll notice oftentimes that I don't often spell things correctly. I don't often capitalize. Visual Studio is smart enough to understand that if I type my car and I press period, it's automatically going to capitalize that C. It knows that my car is the only reasonable thing that I'm going to be typing. Similarly, if I type room without a capital letter and just close it off, it'll automatically capitalize that. It's very easy to get in the habit in Visual Studio of taking the lazy route, but it allows you to produce code at a much faster rate, which is oftentimes very, very useful. So in this video, I've discussed a fraction of what Visual Studio is, what it does, how it does it, so on and so forth. Most of it is learned by experience. I've given you enough so far that you're able to install the program, you're able to get up and running, and you're able to develop and produce code. As you go further, you will discover more things. You'll learn new tips and tricks. If you find anything neat, feel free to share with me. I'm always looking for new things that I can learn in Visual Studio. So that's it for the first video. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoy the tips and tricks. I hope you feel confident and ready to go. Have a good day.